you know. Thanks. Look at this guy.
My name is Ed. I'm an addict.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, thank you for sharing your experience, William. So I'm speaking on the triangle of self-obsession. I actually switched this up on me when I first committed to doing a workshop here. I was going to do Seeking Solutions, which is more my speed.
They did me too.
And then they kind of popped this up on me. So it's probably meant to be. It's probably something that I need to really to look at. So I'm actually glad that they changed it up on me. And so, you know, the triangle of self-obsession is about the past, present, and future. And you know, most, if not all of us, have read that IP and how it's really based on this idea of, you know, resenting the past, being angry at the present, and fearful of the future. And so I was just thinking for a little while about this, and really just kind of what's been going on in my life for a good little while now. And the word responsibility just keeps coming to my mind, right? And so, you know how, like, I was just sitting there thinking as William was sharing how the steps can be, steps are funny, you know, they're kind of messed up sometimes. I'm being silly here, but it's like, you know, you work this fourth step, this fourth and fifth step, and, you know, for most, if not all of us, it's about, there's a lot about resentments in there, you know, and so eventually you get to this part where, in the steps, where you make amends to people. So it's kind of twisted. At first you're all mad because all these people did these things to you, and then you got to turn around and, like, apologize to them. Like, yeah, how does that work? You know, I feel like the steps tricked me into doing that, you know. But really what I think that is just this really deep, enriched process of me learning how to take responsibility for my own life. You know, I know we talk about how, you know, we may not be responsible for our disease, but we are responsible for our recovery. And I think if I look at that as anything less than that, then I'm responsible for everything in my life, then I'm susceptible to resentment, you know. I'm susceptible to being angry at the present, and I'm definitely susceptible to being fearful of the future, you know. And so I think that one of the greatest gifts, I think, in my recovery and in my life with working the steps is really just teaching me how to be a responsible human being, you know. And, you know, being able to look at my past and my experiences there, the resentments, and just come to my own understanding of that, come to some place of ownership, you know, that I think is really, really important in not just in recovery, but life itself. That if I've spent all this time angry at other people or resentful of what they've done, blaming other people for my current situation, or you know, some boss that didn't give me a good enough chance, or, you know, some family member that acted like an idiot and stole from me, and how that ruined my life. Well, that's just me giving them power too, you know. So it's like, so it just keeps coming back to this idea of responsibility. And, you know, something I've realized lately too is that I think for a long time, and I think for a lot of people, that word responsibility isn't really clear. I think, and this has been my experience, and it's been a lot of people's experience that I've talked with, is that, you know, there's this tendency to look at responsibility as blame and fault, and that's not it, you know. So if somebody tells me, hey, you need to take responsibility for that, they're not saying this is your fault, or they're not blaming me for this. They're saying you need to take responsibility for this. You need to take some corrective actions to make this right, you know. And I think it's important for me, I think it's important for us to really understand it that way, so that when it comes to things like the triangle of self-obsession, like, it really gives me this really effective, makes it more effective, makes my work on that more effective, you know. I can be more intentional with that. And I think it's important for me to be intentional with it, because if I'm just randomly doing stuff without really understanding and believing in what I'm doing, it's just going to happen randomly, and sometimes haphazardly, you know. And Now, I'm going to be surprised while my life is still chaotic because I'm not being intentional with it. There's no real structure with it, you know. And so I try not to take, you know, the steps for granted. I try not to take the principles that we learn in here for granted. You know, try to really just take them for whatever I need to take them for. You know, whatever is going to make my recovery best, what's going to make my life best, what's going to help me carry the message in the best way that I'm supposed to carry the message. And so really kind of just one of those resentments that the word that comes to my mind is ownership, you know. And so there's just, obviously there's something happens as we work the steps. We always call it a miracle, but if we look at it, it's just this intentional process that happens for me, you know, that I get to participate in, you know. And I say that I get to participate in because I didn't write the steps. I didn't create them, you know. They were already laid out for me, and I'm grateful for that. But I think that one of the most beautiful things about that is it just really teaches me to be responsible. And there's a lot of, I don't know if power is the right word, but there's a lot of opportunity for me whenever I take responsibility for what's going on in my life, you know. And so obviously by clearing up some of that past with the resentments and everything, and maybe most of us have heard this, that I know I heard it a lot when I first got clean, that resentments are like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's about how much sense they make. And but you know, it's really, to me, in my experience, it's really cool how the steps really address resentments and how, for me anyway, they help alleviate that. And it's almost like it's not so much about directly addressing the resentments. It's about working on these other aspects of my life. You know, like I talk about it in the fourth and fifth step. You know, but there comes to this place through the sixth and seventh step where, you know, I work on my own character defects. You know, and I want those removed. And so my character is improved. You know, and so my behavior is changing in a way that's indicative of someone who is grateful, who is a good person. You know, and in my mind, like, good people don't carry around a bunch of resentments, you know. And so that's pretty cool how this works. And then it kind of gets to this point, you know, later on where I make a list of the people I've harmed. So I go from this place of being mad at people and upset with people in situations in the past that have pissed me off, to now I'm the one making amends and changing my life based on some things that I've done with those people, some of the harm that I've caused, you know. And of course, you know, continuing through the rest of the steps is a necessary part of that too. But that kind of core part of those steps right there really, to me, speak to that transformation with my resentments, you know. And so the cool thing about that is it really kind of shifts my perspective in the present moment, you know. And so that's when we talk about, you know, the triangle of self-obsession talks about, you know, being angry at the present, you know, and the positive result of working on that is acceptance, right? And so, you know, for me, that's really just been about, I would say primarily about the relationships in my life, because I think that if there is this greatest gift that I've been given in recovery, it's the relationships, whether it's the relationships that I've been able to mend, or the relationships that I've been able to build and create since I've been here, you know. And so it's, again, this very intentional work that we do with the steps, I believe, is what helps us achieve that, you know. And so it's, I think it kind of forces me to be very purposeful with my actions in my life and what I do. And you know, you could just tell when you walk up to somebody and you start chatting with somebody and they're just in the moment and they just ooze acceptance, you know, and it's attractive, you know, and you want some of that, you know. And so I think that, you know, my experience in recovery is that I've been extended a lot of grace, you know. People just being present in the moment, show me what that's like, you know. Even when I'm, you know, resentful of the past and angry at the present and fearful of the future, I've had people in my life who, regardless of my chaos, they took their time, even though they may not even really benefit from it. They took their time, they gave me time, and showed me what it's like to just be in the moment, you know. and that's been vital in my recovery, you know. And you know, I think that, you know, it's probably most, if not all, of our story, that when we get here, it's probably because things are not well, right? Like, we don't get here because life is dandy, and so that's certainly my experience, and I've spoke to this for, you know, quite a long time now. Is that, you know, when I got here, it was about, I just wanted to stop hurting. You know, whatever it was, I didn't want to be in trouble anymore. I didn't want to hurt anymore. I didn't want life to suck and be miserable anymore. You know, and I really didn't have the I don't know. I didn't have what it took to really take myself out either at that time. You know, and I do remember when I first got clean, I told myself that if life wasn't better when I had 90 days clean, that I was going to kill myself. And well, I'm still here, so we see it got better. But the journey since then has been just wild, you know. And so what I'm getting at here with this is that, you know, when I got here, it was to avoid a lot of things. It was to avoid pain, to avoid misery, to, you know, avoid being in trouble, to avoid all the stuff that comes with that lifestyle, right? And after some time, and I really, really feel fortunate to have had this, I don't know, this stroke of insight, this epiphany, and it's certainly not my own doing, but it's, I realized that, you know, I don't think recovery is meant for me to run away from something, you know. I think it's meant for me to be able to turn my life around and chase after life, you know, and to grab life by the horns, so to speak. And so the way I put that is like, there's this, you know, I come here with this avoidance-based motivation. Like, my only motivation is to run away, you know, to get away from something. Now, even though it's good I'm getting clean, you know, I'm not using, that's good, but at some point there has to be a shift in my motivation, because if I'm 14 years clean and I'm still running, I probably need to take a look at that, you know. And so there has to, for me, this shift started to take place, and I'm really grateful for that, to where it went from this avoidance-based motivation to what I say it's like a rewards-based motivation. Like, there's a lot of good things in life, and if I stay clean, I work the steps, and I strive to be a principled man, I know that when we talk about what NA promises and what the NA doesn't promise, I can guarantee you that there have been a lot of successes in my life that I have to attribute to NA and working the steps and the principles that I've learned from here. You know? And so what that has done for me is given me a lot of confidence. It's given me a lot of faith, you know, which kind of ties into the future part of the triangle of self-obsession, where typically it's fear, you know. And don't get me wrong, I still have that. But I'm a lot better today at making that shift, you know. And so it's practice, you know. And so I'm currently on my 11th step, and you know, the big focus with that is faith right now, you know. Because I've got a lot of really heavy stuff going on in my life right now, and it's really, really easy to look at the future and be fearful, you know. But I'm really grateful that I've had all of the challenges in my life since I've been clean. That recovery has helped me to overcome, to help me to look at it in a better way, to help me to have faith, to know that, hey, if you put one foot in front of the other, even though you may not know what's coming tomorrow, you keep doing the right thing, you keep applying principles, it's going to be good. You're going to be good. You're going to be better, whatever happens, you know. And so that gives me this confidence to keep moving forward, you know. But I think one thing, again, kind of back to this word, you know, two words here, responsibility and intentionality, you know, that I'm responsible for my future too, you know. And, you know, even though I can be grateful for my past, I can have some acceptance for my future, you know. If I'm really to I'll just say be excited about the future, whatever happens, even when things are hard. Like if I can be excited about it, what does that say about my life and what recovery has done for me? And I've had that experience, and I've talked to a lot of people who've had that experience. And so I think that just by being intentional with understanding why I know it's going to be good, having that faith that if I really take a look at myself and I realize that, all this freaking out, all this worry, it never does me any good. This is not what leads to my success. This is not what leads to me healing, to moving on, to overcoming, right? And so, but what happens is if I'm lazy and I don't take the time to really look at myself and my life and what's working and what's not working, I'll just kind of clump everything that I did together. All the worry, all the good stuff too, but I'll kind of clump all the bad stuff with it too and say, okay, this is what it takes for me to succeed, But again, I think the steps really help me to spread all that out and discern which of those things are helpful for me to succeed and which of those things are really destructive, So things like worry, fear, all those things are destructive in my life. And so if I can be intentional with the steps to really sort through that stuff, then I think it gives me a better chance. And, God forbid, maybe it gives someone else a hope, right? And so that's probably like the next thing for me is that, I do believe we all have some sort of gift, that the work we do in here bears fruit, and I want the work that I do to bear the most fruit that it can. And so I'm going to take full responsibility for my life with that. I'm going to be intentional with that, and hopefully I catch myself if I start to slip up. And if I don't catch myself, hopefully I've established enough relationships in here for somebody else to say, hey, you're slipping up. This is not who you said you want to be, And so, but I think we're right at the time here, almost 9 o'clock. So I think I'm done. William, thanks again for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Thanks for sharing.